The first college football playoff rankings are revealed. We've got thoughts. And by the way, just 169 days, Muench, until the NFL draft. So I got to ask you, Muench, you good?
I'm awesome, man. Let's go.
Roll that beat, Tucker. Impromptu show today for the folks.
I told you you'd want to do this.
I mean, I've said all along, I'm going to let you peek behind the curtain. Muench texted me the other day. It's like, are we going to do a college football playoff rankings reveal show? I was like, no, didn't do that well last year. Not, 100 other shows are doing it. Then the rankings come out last night, and we start texting as a group. I'm like, what the hell are we doing? Let's jump on in the morning. We normally tape late Wednesday nights for the Thursday morning show. We're like, screw it. Let's jump on in the morning. So here we are. This is the McShay Show, presented by FanDuel, and college football Saturdays are heating up. Whether you're in for the early kick or the late night action, FanDuel lets you bet your way with the same game parlays, live betting, game props, and more. And Missouri, get excited because FanDuel is coming your way on December 1st. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com/McShay and make every Saturday count. Must be 21 and older and present in select states, or 18 and older and present in D.C., Kentucky, or Wyoming. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. Fresh and ready to go. Muench has been grinding tape for our rough draft show that we're taping later today for tomorrow morning, and that will be out and available to you on YouTube, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts, Apple as well. And just a reminder, people, please subscribe. It's amazing the amount of people that we have that are viewing the show, and it keeps growing. But the percentage of people who view it but don't subscribe. So let's make sure all you got to do is click a button. And it's not like we're asking for your email or your social security or any money.
First pet's name. Yep.
Yeah. Child's date of birth. Nothing. We don't want any passwords. Nothing. But we would appreciate it. So just click that button if you don't mind. All right. Obviously, we're here to react to the rankings. I'm thrilled about them, and we'll get to it in a second. But every single week we do our FanDuel pick of the week. I took a little dip. Late Mr. October took a little dip 2 weeks ago. Right back on track. It's November 1st. Maybe I'm Mr. October, November. I don't know. But on an absolute tear. Won the entire personal pool that I'm in. FanDuel account's looking beautiful. My poor daughter, Alysha, she needs a new pair of shoes, as Matt Davis used to say at Richmond. And I hit the hit the second 4-leg parlay of the season last week. 2 in 5 weeks. Here we go.
Let's go.
Right. With all that said, and I'm getting Tommy John surgery soon, shoulder from patting myself on the back. But I want to get to our FanDuel picks of the week before we get into the college football playoff rankings. There's 2 games that we've kind of highlighted that Muench and I are hot on. Steve, why don't you start it out? What's your pick of the week?
Oregon is a 6.5-point favor at Iowa. Give me Iowa with the points. Again, I'm a little concerned about the Oregon offense, and that Iowa team is the most underrated team in the country, in my opinion. I don't know how they're not in the AP top 25. They've been rolling over the last month. Since the Indiana loss, they've been rolling. I just think they got some, the most dangerous return man in the country. And again, Oregon's been good at covering kicks, but give me Iowa with the points.
Have you looked at the weather report in that game too?
No, why? Tell me it's bad weather. That's even better.
Iowa November weather, it looks like.
Yes.
And I know Oregon's got a lot of rain and all that. Oh, it matters. Making that trip, traveling to that weather, something's brewing there. Something is absolutely brewing. I'm going to go a little off the radar. I mean, it's not that far off, but haven't featured Virginia, I don't think, in any picks this year.
No.
And I'm going to go against Virginia. This is a nosebleed game. My high school baseball coach, Frank DeFelice, who always talked with 4 fingers and 1, 4-1, always. would be like, anytime we see like in the state rankings in baseball, and we actually had we won the state championship my sophomore year, and we were kind of in the hunt every year. If the rankings would come out and we got a little high, he would be screaming about nosebleeds all week in practice, right? His batting practice and going to fielding drills. And, you guys got nosebleeds. You read the rankings. This feels like a nosebleed game for me. Virginia now, the first rankings come out. They're all huddled around in the apartments there in Charlottesville, Virginia.
I would be.
That's what, no question.
Human nature, man.
Grab some like Papa John's or Domino's or whatever it is, load up, and let's all meet up at one of the captain's houses, right? They're ranked 14th. They're the highest ranked team in the ACC. Very few outside of people in Charlottesville probably expected that this was a scenario that could play out when we got the first rankings revealed, that they would be with Miami and Clemson and the hype coming into this year for those two programs especially, and Florida State winning in first week against Alabama. This was a 3-teamer, and then Georgia Tech going on this run, undefeated late through October. That their first rankings reveal would have Virginia, the highest ranked ACC team, sitting there at, I think it's 14, right? And kind of right there, sneaking around the chicken coop.
Yep.
Now they're playing
14.
Wake Forest. Yep, they're playing Wake Forest this week. Wake Forest just got the doors blown off of them. Damon Claiborne has been up and down. The NFL draft prospect at running back. It's a 6.5-point spread. I think Virginia grinds out wins. They play up, they play down to the competition. I think Wake Forest is a live dog this week. Scott Stadium in Charlottesville. So keep an eye out on that one. And we'll get you at McShay 13. Steve is at You Good Mensch. I'll release some other picks and the 4-leg parlay. We're going to try to make it back-to-back for the first time this season. I'm feeling good.
Let's go.
All right, let's get into this thing. Let's go through the rankings first before we get to the bracket. My biggest takeaway, and this is all about takeaways. What did you learn from the first rankings reveal? That's the whole thing for me, because
right.
it really is. You got to study it, because as Dan and I were texting last night, and he's not wrong. It's like this reveal, then the one before the conference championship games, and then obviously the final one where we have the Sunday breakout show, and we'll be live covering that, where we basically find out what the final rankings are, who's in, who's out.
So much fun,
and what are the matchups. Those are the three. Everything in between, like, yeah, it's good for TV and ESPN, whether you can get them on YouTube TV by then or not, we'll find out. I've got so many thoughts on that. And I have so much behind the scenes information, but I've done enough jabbing in the past 8 weeks. And,
the people want it. The people love it.
At James Franklin, Paul Feinbaum, and the Mel Kiper situation. I think I'm just I'd come in peace. My biggest takeaway, Stephen, the entire first college football playoff rankings reveal. I love what the committee has done. And what happened, if people, I absolutely love it. And listen, it's not because all 12, we do the TMS, the McShay Show Top 12, TMS Top 12 every Saturday night on our live ranking show. And all 12 teams that we put in on Saturday night, early Sunday morning, were the 12 teams ranked at the top, in the top 12 spots in this college football playoff rankings, right?
Right.
So, yeah, you think, well, yeah, of course you love it, McShay. The TMS Top 12 matched up. The first 6 teams were the exact order. 7 through 12 wasn't the exact order, but it was those other 6 teams. So, of course you like it. That's not why. Here's the reason why. And on this show, if you're a fan of this show and you're a friend of the family, as we like to say, you're watching this show in January after the college football playoff championship, the CFP. And you're watching this show January, February, March, April, May. All NFL draft. It's what we specialize in, right? And so I think what may have gotten lost if you're watching this show, and maybe not at a lot of other shows, which I don't pretend that that's the case with a lot of folks out there, but there was some big decisions and some tweaks made to the college football playoff committee. And I think it was in March they came out, and we've got an eye on all this stuff, but we're focusing heavily. We got the combine. We've got all-star games. We've got pro days. We've got all of our draft shows, but I've got an eye on, hey, there's noise that they're going to put more emphasis on the strength of record, the record strength. And they're to do it because our two bitches last year, Steve, our two major complaints were these. One, get rid of the brackets and how they were constituted a year ago. The seeding, right? The seeding was a mess. It's got to be the top 4 teams. It can't be some, 7th or 6th, 7th, or 8th ranked Big 12 or ACC in the top 4 seats. It's got to be the top 4 teams in the country. They fixed that. Our second major complaint was, man, it feels an awful lot like they're just like looking at the standings and going off of wins and losses. There's not enough emphasis on who do they have to play. And that was part of our complaint with like the South Carolinas and the Ole Misses when comparing them to other programs like the SMUs, right?
Yep.
And even like Indiana deserved to be in at the end of the day. But as the process was going, we were saying, yeah, they're undefeated, but who have they played? And so they came out and said that more of an emphasis was going to be put on the record strength. And in doing that, not only are they emphasizing who are the best 12 teams. At the end of the day, that's if you're a true college football fan, forget about where you went to school, what program you pull for. You want the best 12 teams in there. So
100%.
So you've got to have you've got to really emphasize like who these teams are playing, because South Carolina with 2 losses or 3 losses may be a lot better than an SMU program or an Indiana program, should be ranked higher than those programs that have no loss, 1 loss, whatever it is. So that was kind of our major complaint outside of the seeding. And then I hear that that's going to be an emphasis this year. And I'm like, well, I've heard a lot of emphasis points in the spring before that didn't play out. Here it played out. The other thing this does is it doesn't crucify a program for playing a really good non-conference game or a tougher non-conference schedule. So when you're Texas and you lose to Ohio State, the number 1 team in the country, and it's the first week in the season, and it's the first time starter at quarterback for a full year, and all those things, we're keeping perspective. That's all I can ask for, right? I want to give you a couple of examples of how that played out. Georgia Tech. I feel like last year, if the emphasis hadn't shifted, and we were back to last year's committee and the emphasis that they had on wins and losses, that we thought it was overweighted, Georgia Tech probably would have been in the top 12. They got 1 loss. They're 8-1. Yeah, it was recent. It just occurred. But this is a team that's was undefeated until this week, and they have 1 loss. They might have been in. Then the rankings come out, and I see Georgia Tech's all the way down at 17. And I'm like, maybe they are putting an emphasis. I see Texas and Oklahoma at 11 and 12 with 2 losses. But look at where those 2 losses came. Look at the loss for Texas to start the season. Look at Oklahoma's losses. So there's an emphasis put on it that's important, that I'm sitting here congratulating the committee. And each year you try to get a little bit better. Every day you try to be 1% better, right? And I feel like this committee's emphasis is better than a year ago. We fixed the seeding, and now there's the record strength that's important. Look at Iowa, for example. The AP poll, they're still not in the AP top 25. You just mentioned you think Oregon's on upset alert. Going to Kinnick this week. We both recognize the flaws in Iowa, but we both have an appreciation for what Iowa's doing, and also what that team is now versus maybe what it was in the beginning of the season. If the whole goal is to get the best 12 in, teams evolved, teams get better. Iowa's gotten better, Texas has gotten better, and teams regress. Miami has regressed. And it happens year in and year out, it feels like. They're great in August, September, October, and they fall apart in November and December. So looking at Iowa 20 here, and yes, they're still all the way down at 20, But now it's created a path where Iowa is in the mix. They've got a schedule ahead of them where they could get in. And we'll break things down by conference soon. But that was my biggest takeaway, Steve. And I throw to you now saying, like, agree or disagree on that, or if you had another takeaway before we shift over to the conference championships. And I should mention, we talked about it. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see the graphic. But the TMS top 6 Saturday night was Ohio State 1, Indiana 2, Texas A&M 3, Alabama 4, Georgia 5, Ole Miss 6. Committee was lockstep with us.
100%.
7 through 12, we had the same teams in there. We had Oregon, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Texas Tech, BYU, and Texas in that order, 7 through 12. The committee had, and I'm fine with it, and I think they have more love for the Big 12. And you know what? When I take a step back and look, maybe they should.
We'll talk about that in a second.
Okay. They had BYU at 7, Texas Tech at 8, Oregon 9, Notre Dame 10, Texas 11, Oklahoma 12. Okay? So that's how it played out. So now I throw to you, Steve, with the points of emphasis that I discussed. Take it wherever you want to go.
I cannot believe that this old grump is going to say what I'm about to say, but I agree with you. I mean, there is some real progress in what they're doing here, and we'll talk about the seeding in a minute, but I want to talk about, let's get right into that Big 12, because that was food for thought for me. Traditionally, I believe that the ACC is a better conference than the Big 12. And when you start getting into this and you see that BYU is at 7, which is a little high for me, but they haven't lost yet. I think they'll come down. They got that BYU Texas Tech 7-8 is going to get figured out this week, right? So that's going to get figured out really quickly. They also have Utah at 13. They have 3 Big 12 teams before an ACC team even shows up. And so in my mind, that's setting off alarm bells. Immediately, my radar is up. Really? And then I start looking at it, and man, that Utah team is frustrating, but they just came off our monster win against Cincinnati, and I stand by that. That's the best offensive line in the country. That was my pick to win the Big 12 to begin the season. BYU, we'll get back to them right now, has exceeded expectations. I think they're the one team that's maybe a little bit of a paper tiger, but deserves to be there right now. We'll see what happens against Texas Tech. That Texas Tech defense is supremely talented. They're pretty good on offense. I think they deserve to be where they are. Now, again, if you're asking me who I think is better, Oregon or BYU, I'm putting Oregon ahead of BYU. I'm putting Notre Dame ahead of those teams. I think I would put Texas ahead of those teams head to head. But if you're looking at strictly the Big 12 versus the ACC, they got it right, man.
A statement was made. A statement was made.
And I think a pretty courageous one. And maybe that's not the right word. Courageous is too strong. But that's not easy for them to do, to come out and say, look, we really believe in the Big 12 this year. The Big 12 has been kind of the Power Four, it's been the little brother. Tell me if I'm wrong. And maybe some of this is Arizona State last year. Maybe some of this is Arizona State going in and mixing it up and saying, hey, the Big 12's for real. Maybe it's a little bit of that. I don't know. But you look at those teams, BYU, Texas Tech, and Utah, they're tough outs. I'm not saying that they're contenders, but they are tough outs. I think they got it right. And to get into, I don't know if you want to get into this right now, but the bracket, the seeding, McShay, look at that those potential matchups in the second round.
Yeah, let's pull it up, Tucker.
Oh my God! Look at
mean,
those potential matchups, man.
There are a lot of people who are listening, driving in their car, or running errands or doing some housework. So I do want to lay it out for you in case you haven't taken a look at it or it's just not in front of you. Here are the seedings. One is Ohio State, 2 is Indiana, 3 Texas A&M, 4 Alabama. They all would get buys in this scenario, right? So they're sitting around waiting for the winners of these matchups. the matchup to play Alabama would be Georgia-Memphis. Oh Lord, Georgia-Bama in the quarterfinals.
Are we kidding? Right out immediately, the second round. Keep going.
Okay, now the second grouping. Oregon, Texas Tech. I don't even know who I like in that game.
I like Oregon, but it's
I do too, slightly, but that's an 8 versus 9. Texas Tech 8, Oregon versus 9. The winner has to go play Ohio State. Still, like the number 1 team in the country, team that has been like just unflappable. Very few flaws. You still look at that and say, for their first game in the quarterfinals, they got to play either Oregon or Texas Tech. It ain't going to be an easy out. Then you got Virginia and Ole Miss with the right to go play Texas A&M. You'd think that would be Ole Miss, and all of a sudden now we're looking at Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State versus Oregon or Texas Tech, and then A&M versus Ole Miss. My Lord. And then we get to the final bracket, which is independence, the old independence versus the Big Ten. Indiana sitting there at the 2 seed, waiting to see the winner of BYU Notre Dame. So you could have a rematch, right?
Yes.
A rematch of last year's Indiana Notre Dame, Texas A&M Ole Miss, Ohio State versus Oregon or Texas Tech.
Another rematch
and
from
Georgia, Alabama. Yes,
yep.
Yeah, you're right.
Yep. I mean, that second round, we don't have that what was it? The SMU Penn State was in the second round, I think, last year. There were a couple duds, I felt like, in the second round last year. That's gone. That second round of that playoff.
And in part because the seeding is different.
That's 100% why. That's exactly why.
It's the 2 changes from a year ago. Seeding is different, and the record strength is emphasized.
Right.
And that is setting us up for a beautiful end of December, January run in college football.
A great job by the committee on getting that fixed right away. Great job by making that adjustment after year 1 of the expanded playoff model. Outstanding. And look at what we've got now. I mean, the top 2 seeds, the top 2 of the top seeds are from the Big Ten. 2 of the top seeds are from the SEC, as it should be. You want to give automatic bids to Power 4 teams? I get that. But there is a difference between the SEC and the Big Ten and the ACC and the Big 12. There just is. There's a drop-off. So let's make sure that that's acknowledged and make sure that that's accounted for by getting the top 2 from each of those conferences as the guys with buys, as the teams with buys.
All right. I've been blamed my entire life for being an eternal optimist. And it has absolutely allowed me to do some wonderful things in life, and it has absolutely caused me some problems, right? And we're not here for the McShay history or psychology. However, you are not one of those typically. And that's why we balance.
What do you mean?
That's why we balance one another out pretty well. But in learning that, I need to keep my optimism in check, I run through these mental exercises of like, not everyone's viewing it through this lens, Todd.
No.
And I'm sure if you're going to consume other content, whether it's, on the networks or other shows, there's a lot of people complaining and conspiracy theorists and all that. And like, not everyone is like, hey, great job. Pack it up. We don't have much of a show to do today. The reason I wanted to start with the optimism is I feel like more so than ever, going back to the BCS and all the bullshit we've been through as college football fans, and just one national championship game, and then 4 teams getting in, and then we bump it to 12, but we get these horrible seeds, and the strength of record is not being included enough. We're at the best place we've been in a long time. Is it perfect? No. But when I say we're in the best place we've been in forever, since we went back from the archaic, just like whatever the rankings are at the end of the year, we pick the polls decide who the national champion is. And some years we have 2 teams that are co-champions. It's a mess. This is the best position I feel like college football has been in ever, deciding a national champion. But I say that and recognizing it's a beautiful thing, but we're potentially headed for disaster this month. We are. And I want to get into it because
of the schedules. Yep.
Because of the schedules. Because the beautiful thing in college football is a lot of these schedules are backloaded, whether it's rivalry games, conference games, so much of it is backloaded. And it's a form of truth serum the next 5 weeks, truly. Mm-hmm. And we saw last year, Clemson's in the college football playoff. There's going to be a couple of those. So I want to go through this. Here's how I view it, and follow me, and I'll try to do it succinctly. Follow along with me just for a minute. Here's my brain, how it works. I want to do this by conferences because it's really important how it plays out. Not only the conference games coming up, but also the conference champions, and then how many other teams from each conference will get in depending on scenarios. Okay.
I'm glad you're doing this. Does get confusing. You have to kind of take a second and lock in here.
Right. So everyone take a deep breath at home as you're listening or watching and just think through this with me. Okay. With me, not I'm telling you, let's talk through this. Okay. First of all, let's go through who are the automatics, right? SEC gets one, Big 10 gets one, Big 12 gets one, ACC gets one, Group of 5 gets one. That's 5.
Yep.
There's 12 teams, so there are 7 at-larges, okay?
Right.
The biggest question to me is what comprises that we know the conference champions and the highest ranked G5, right now it's Memphis, is going to get a spot. So now we've got 7 at-larges, and that's where all the debate's going to be, right? Is the conference champion loser? Are they still rewarding you for being in the conference championship and playing in it? Is it a team that is sitting at 14, 15, 16, 19? Shoot, could it be a team like Iowa at 20 or Michigan at 21 that finds a way to sneak into this thing? So I want to go by conferences. As I see it right now, it is practically a given that the SEC will wind up with 3 of those 7 remaining the at-large spots, right? 3 of them.
Yeah.
Giving the SEC 4. It is also practically a given that the Big 10 will receive 2 of those at-larges.
Okay.
It's not like I feel like 4 for the SEC, 3 of which will be at-large, is kind of a lock at this point. Okay. I think worst case for the Big 10, it would be 1 additional, so 2. But I truly believe if Oregon gets knocked off by Iowa, I think there will be a third Big 10 team in. So let's, for the sake of this right now, say it's 3 for the SEC of those 7 at large and 2 for the Big 10. That leaves us with 2 remaining. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a crash course to the SEC getting 5, even though there's opportunity with like Texas playing Georgia and Texas playing Texas A&M and several other games? Okay. Is it a crash course towards 5, or does the SEC cannibalize itself? Then you have to ask the question, if we're saying at least 3 for the SEC of these at-large 7, and at least 2 for the at-large Big 10. Now we've got 2 remaining. Notre Dame becomes this wild card, man. I don't
really.
Just listen to me, because now there are 2 remaining.
I'm listening. I'm hearing you. I'm
now there are 2 spots remaining. One, we're assuming right now Notre Dame's sitting there with the 10th spot and a record that looks beatable throughout. But I'm looking at Notre Dame, and I'm saying, man, they're playing a lot better. Steve and I both believe they're one of the top 10 teams in the country. Probably would have had them ranked a spot or 2 ahead of where the committee did. But they are safely in there with Navy at Pitt, Syracuse at Stanford. They're going to be double-digit favorites in 3 of those, and probably close to double-digit at Pitt. But you and I are saying that Pitt game's scary, man.
Yeah, keep an eye on it.
Right? So
keep an eye on it.
But Notre Dame, it's literally the Notre Dame spot. Do they want it? Can they go earn it? Or does that free up for another conference to get another team in? Truly, that's what.
But on November 5th, you feel confident that one of those at-larges is going to Notre Dame, correct? I mean, that's what I feel that. Okay, good.
FanDuel
I was misunderstanding.
FanDuel would tell us that, and everyone who makes the lines, like that's the heavy favorite in all this is that Notre Dame's in. I'm just saying, if it's too clean right now, man, and college football. I've noticed it when I started going on the road. I started going on the road covering games back when I was like 20-something years old, around 2001. And I'm traveling, and all of a sudden, I do 12 or 10, 11, 12 weeks. Everything's normal. You get your assignment on Sunday, you leave on Thursday, you come back on Saturday night or Sunday morning. You're in this routine, right? And then all of a sudden, your significant other or your mom's calling and she wants to know about Thanksgiving. And it's like, oh, travel's different that week. I got to go fly to see my mom and my family out in Ohio. So I'm going from Boston to Ohio. I get in there on a Tuesday. I'm there on Wednesday. We have Thanksgiving. Now I'm flying out Friday morning from Ohio to the game. Things are just messed up. And I spent a couple days with the family. Your brains and programs try to insulate players. But I'm telling you, the Thanksgiving thing, wild. If you go back in the history of college football, that wild results. It's like, something about breaking the routine just a little bit throws things off. Not for everyone, but you're always going to. And then you have the rivalry games. And then you have conference championship games. You're looking at 3 opportunities from like in late November to the first weekend into December. Things get messed up. And it's a beautiful thing for college football. But what we're looking at now is going to change. So I want to throw out that Notre Dame thing because they truly hold one of the 7 spots. And if they dump it by their own doing, that opens up another spot for all these other programs. So where are those other and regardless, it's at least one additional spot that the ACC, the committee has spoken. The ACC ain't getting it. They're just not getting a second one.
No,
They don't even have one in the top 12 right now, or 13 for that matter. They purposely put, as you said, Utah ahead of all those ACC teams. They've got 4 of 5. This run of 4 or 5 ACC teams from 14 to 18. That's Virginia at 14, Louisville at 15. Then it's Vandy mixed in at 16. But then Georgia Tech at 17 and Miami at 18. Talk about a punishment. Miami, it's like, we don't believe. So 4 or 5 teams from 14 to 18, Steve. But none of them in the top 12. So, yeah, you're going to get one in, but don't have any delusions of grandeur. And then
first of all, I'm with you. That seems vindictive against Miami. I mean, I'm not high on Miami right now. I don't think anyone is, but that seems extra harsh. That's a little bit of a recency loss to a pretty good SMU team on the road. Interesting that they're that low. The other thing I'll say is that having that group, that cluster, screams to me that the committee's like, hey, ACC, could you figure it out? Like we know there's a group of you right here. Could you just figure it out? Because
you guys will figure it out.
Yeah, we don't really love Virginia here, but like at the same time, no one will figure it out. Someone step up.
And I did a little bit of a rabbit hole last night because they have all these like predictions and analysis and all that. Ultimately, it's going to be one team from the ACC, and there's really 3 teams that are vying for that one spot. It's Virginia, Georgia Tech, and Louisville. There's like a 28% chance or something like that Pitt or Miami could wind up in.
Right.
Okay. And obviously a Pitt win over Notre Dame that would be the Notre Dame loss. So maybe it opens up another spot. So I'm not saying it's impossible for Pitt and Miami, but when you do like the percentages, it's low percentage. All right. So 3 ACC programs, Virginia, Georgia Tech, and Louisville, vying for one spot. It's going to be the conference championship game. Okay. But that's included in those first 5, the automatic bids, right?
Right. So you still have that at large. You still have 2 at large right now.
So that's the ACC. Given what we know now and where it is, the ACC is like terrible chances of getting a second team in, and they've deserved that. What the committee also told us is, and we'll get to the SEC and the Big Ten in a minute, the committee has told us they have a higher respect for the Big 12 than I think the media and public nationally are giving the Big 12. Now, they also have the comfort of, we'll put 2 teams in the top 10. We'll put BYU, which is undefeated, at number 7. And we'll put Texas Tech in there at number 8 with a 1 loss. But one of these guys is going to get knocked out on Saturday. So by the time we re-rack this thing next week, the Big 12 will be down to 1. But what's interesting is I don't think the Big 12 is out of contention, especially if Notre Dame were to lose. But I don't think the Big 12 is totally out of contention because of where Utah is lurking right now.
Yeah, by setting them that high, they did this with SMU last year too, by the way, where they had SMU high, and because SMU at the end didn't have the great run at the end, they were still in a position to get in the playoff because of those initial rankings. I'm with you on this. I hear you.
Utah, I want you to hear this too. Utah has this really wild, like they're a wild card, and they have this, they were just handed, I hope people one of my biggest takeaways, Utah was just handed a trump card. They were just handed a wild card in a game of cards. They were just handed, you can use this with any suit, with any number. By putting them at 13, they're not getting in the conference championship game.
Right.
Now, what's difficult is what Utah's rooting for, because they lost to the two teams ahead of them.
Right.
And so they don't have the tiebreaker to get into the conference championship game.
I see where you're going. I'm with you.
If BYU beats Texas Tech or Texas Tech beats BYU, they're still going to wind up, unless there's an absolute disaster, they're still going to wind up playing in the conference championship game. Now you say, well, the committee has shown the loser of that conference championship game, they're not going to kick them out and put Utah in over them. And I say, what happens if Team A beats Team B twice? What happens if BYU beats Texas Tech twice, and Texas Tech now has 3 losses?
Or what happens if, I mean, listen, Utah, that was a tight game. The BYU-Utah game is tight. What if BYU loses at Texas Tech, loses at Cincinnati, and then loses? BYU would still be in the conference championship, but they have 2 losses.
Utah's a huge BYU fan, which is uncomfortable for that fan base for obvious reasons.
They're Bearcats fans.
Because they lost by 24 to Texas Tech. They lost by 3, I think it was, to BYU.
Yeah. Yes.
You understand me, right?
But even I think there's even a route though. If BYU loses the conference championship game with 3 losses, does Utah get in? Because they could lose to Texas Tech. They have at Texas Tech and at Cincinnati left on their schedule for BYU.
But listen to me.
I hear you on the other end too.
If BYU beats Texas Tech and then they play in the conference championship again and BYU wins that one, then you say, well, how's that fair? They lost twice to BYU, Texas Tech did, and they beat Utah. How are you going to put Utah in over them? You say, well, it's 3 losses.
Right.
They've already lost twice to BYU. It was a while ago that Texas Tech, Utah lost to
September
BYU,
20th.
and BYU only beat Utah by 3 points. Now, if it's the reverse and Texas Tech beats BYU twice, then the committee will look at it and say, well, Texas Tech is in, and they went head to head, and it's 2 loss versus 2 loss, Utah versus BYU, and BYU beat them. So BYU was in the conference championship game. So Utah is a fascinating, and interestingly enough, they play Baylor, Kansas State, and Kansas. They're going to win out.
Yeah,
Utah is. So they're just lurking. I want people to understand how important that Utah seeding is at number 13. All right, now let's get. We got to run. This is too long. We got to tape rough draft.
I know. I have more questions. We got to go. We'll get into it later on too.
We have plenty of time. The Big Ten and the SEC. This is how I see the Big Ten. There are 6 programs that are vying for 3 or 4 spots. Conference champion is going to take up one of them. We just told you there's a clear path, probably for like if Indiana wins the conference. Or Ohio State wins the conference, Indiana and Oregon, let's say. But Oregon could lose this week. But if Oregon does,
and they got USC later on too.
So the 6 programs in the Big Ten vying for 3 or 4 spots, depending on how this thing plays out. Ohio State and Indiana are in. Lock it.
Correct.
Oregon needs to play its way in, but has a very clear path and a doable path. Okay.
Agree.
Then you've got, so those are 3 that we believe will be or very likely to be in. Then you've got Michigan, Iowa, and USC are on the outside looking in. And I know you look at this and you say, well, what? Like USC's 19, Todd. Iowa's 20. Michigan's 21. I say that because of who they still have to play. They don't totally control their path, but if you go look at each of their schedules, and I'm not going to sit here and do this for everyone, but everyone who's a fan in that fan base, they know who you got left. Iowa's got Oregon this week. Michigan's got Ohio State. USC's got a couple big games. So if one of those teams were to go on a Clemson-like run like last year at the end of the season, don't count them out. And if Notre Dame were to lose, maybe there's an additional spot for the Big Ten to get 4 in instead of 3. Okay. Or if Notre Dame gets in and there's that one additional spot from the 7 that I talked to you earlier from the at-larges, and Notre Dame wins and they get one of them, so there's that one remaining spot. Does it go to the SEC or go to the Big Ten? The SEC's got a lot of clashes remaining in this final month of college football. And so they could cannibalize, well, the Big Ten could have one of those programs. I'm talking about Michigan, Iowa, USC. USC's capable.
Yeah.
Michigan, it doesn't look like it, but like there's enough talent there.
Yeah, Justice Haynes is out with he's out for a while. That's an issue for them.
So anyway, so keep an eye on that. Then in the SEC, this is the final thing. 7 teams in my estimation are vying for 4 or 5 spots. And it gets tricky because I mentioned Texas has got Georgia and Texas has got Texas A&M.
A&M, yeah.
And would it be better for the conference for Texas to beat A&M to allow them to get in, and A&M still getting in anyway? Or, all that aside, there are 7 teams, and I want to finish with this. There are 2 that are undefeated in conference right now, and we strongly assume both will be in, even with a loss. That's Texas A&M and Alabama. Alabama has the 1 loss. A&M is undefeated overall. Alabama was Florida State first week, much better team than it was, all of those things. So that's 2 of those 4 or 5 spots. Then you've got Georgia, Ole Miss, and Texas. All 1 loss in conference, right? Mm-hmm. Georgia and Ole Miss both have 1 loss in total overall. Texas has 2. One of them was Ohio State in the first week of the season, okay? Then you've got these 2 wild card teams, Oklahoma and Vandy. I don't see a path for Vandy. Oklahoma has a clear path because of the competition they're playing.
But you don't feel great about it because of the competition, but they do. You gave yourself, you bought a lottery ticket. You gave yourself a shot with that schedule. I mean, if you win those games, there's no way they can deny you.
And you guarantee me a healthy Mateer like we saw against Michigan. Remember, Mateer was injured against Auburn. I think it was a lower body injury, and then Mateer got injured. It was the thumb then, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was.
He played through the thumb, and then he had the surgery. So if you gave me pre-thumb injury Mateer, and I haven't seen that yet, I've seen some strides, but I haven't seen that yet, I'd be like, they're capable, but I don't know. But that's the beauty of the next 4 or 5 weeks is we're gonna find out. Whew, that was a lot.
My brain hurts, but that's awesome.
Yeah. All right. We're going to re-rack this thing. We've got Rough Draft is coming out tomorrow morning. We had to do this extra show. Hope everyone enjoyed it. Fired up for the weekend. We gave you a couple FanDuel picks. The McShay Report's coming out tomorrow morning. I talked to some scouts, man. I went to just watch tape, and I watched a bunch of tape. You and I are going to do risers and fallers in the NFL draft, but we got a lot of buzz and scoop. Guys who have been on the road for 8 weeks. 8 weeks, like the vast majority of 8 weeks, going from school to school, racking up miles, talking to coaches, talking to people in the training table, watching tape, like all these sources and all this information, and they're on the road, like literally talking to guys who are in the car driving from this place to the next. Got some good information that we want to share on the show tomorrow morning, the Rough Draft, and also in the McShay Report, where you can Google it and subscribe. We're heating up. We got the college football playoffs coming up. We've got the Senior Bowl. We've got the Combine. We've got all the things NFL draft. So if you don't subscribe now, we really would appreciate.
Calendar's flipping, man.
And I strongly urge you to. Mensch, this was impromptu, but it still was 5 stars. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino. Or 18 plus and present in D.C., Kentucky, or Wyoming. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 1-800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.